The desert world was quiet when the human traveler walked alone under the fading light of twin suns. His boots pressed into the red sand, leaving a thin trail behind him that the wind quickly tried to erase. He had been wandering for days, surviving, on ration packs and what little water he had left in his canteen. His ship had broken down 2 ridges away, and now he carried with him nothing but hope that someone, anyone, might help. When the stars began to appear, he noticed a soft glow ahead. At first he thought it was only another mirage, the kind that had tricked his tired eyes before. But this glow moved differently. It pulsed like the heartbeat of a living thing. Curious but cautious, he followed. His heart was heavy with doubts, but he had no choice. He was too far from safety to turn back. The glow turned out to be a small camp, hidden behind tall stone arches that looked like ancient ruins. There, a woman stood beside a fire. She was not human. Her hair was silver, shimmering like flowing water, and her skin was pale with faint markings that glowed softly, the same way the campfire did. Her eyes were large, violet in color, and when she turned to see him, he felt as though she could look past his worn body and straight into his thoughts. "You are lost," she said gently. Her voice carried an echo, like wind through a cave. The man stopped several paces away. He was wary. Too many stories warned humans not to trust strangers on alien worlds. Still, something about her calm presence eased his fear. "My ship broke down. I've been walking for days," he admitted. "I didn't expect to find anyone here." She studied him for a moment before nodding. "Few walk this desert. Even fewer survive it alone. You must rest." He almost refused. His pride urged him to keep his distance, but exhaustion made the choice for him. Slowly, he stepped closer and lowered himself near the fire. The warmth wrapped around him, and for the first time in days, his body relaxed. He glanced at her again. She moved with grace, her hands carefully placing herbs into a pot of steaming water. The smell was unfamiliar but comforting. "You are human," she said after a while. "Yes," he answered. He expected more questions. Most aliens he met wanted to know about Earth, about wars, about weapons. But she only tilted her head as if simply confirming a truth. "They say humans carry storms inside their hearts," she murmured. He gave a small, tired laugh. "Storms. That's one way to put it." He looked down, hiding the shadow in his eyes. There were things he carried that he didn't want anyone to see. Mistakes. Regrets. Thoughts he had locked away so tightly that even now, sitting beside a stranger, he dared not let them out. She noticed his silence but didn't press. Instead, she offered him a cup of the herbal drink. He took it, sniffed it, then sipped cautiously. The warmth spread through him, chasing away the chill of the desert night. For a long time they sat quietly, the fire crackling between them. Then she spoke again. "The night is dangerous here. Cold winds cut deeper than blades, and shadows hide things best not seen. You should not face it alone." Her words carried a weight. He looked up, meeting her violet eyes. She was not simply warning him. She was inviting him to stay. "I don't want to be a burden," he said softly. "You are not," she replied. "Sharing warmth is not a burden. It is natural." He shifted uncomfortably. Part of him longed to accept her kindness, but another part whispered doubts. Why would she help him, a stranger with no reason to trust him? What did she see in him that made her want to stay close? She seemed to sense his unease. "Among my people," she explained, "to spend the night with another is not only about survival. It means trust. It means choosing not to be alone in the darkness. I think you carry much weight in your spirit. Perhaps it is time you share it, even if only for one night." Her words cut deeper than he expected. He lowered his gaze to the fire, watching the sparks rise and vanish into the night sky. She was right. He did carry weight. Too much of it. But to share it? He wasn't sure he could. The silence stretched, but it was not uncomfortable. He studied her, the way the firelight touched her silver hair, The way her expression held no judgment, only patience. Slowly, he felt a crack forming in the walls he had built around himself. "What's your name?" he finally asked. "Leora," she said. "And yours?" "Ethan." She repeated it softly as though tasting the sound. "Ethan." "Then tonight, Ethan, you will not face the darkness alone." The night deepened, and the cold winds she had warned about began to howl beyond the ruins. But inside the small circle of firelight, warmth remained. Ethan wrapped himself in a blanket she gave him, and Leora sat nearby, her presence steady and calm. They exchanged small stories, nothing too deep, only fragments of their worlds. He told her about rain on Earth, how it tapped on windows and filled rivers with life. She told him about the glowing seas of her planet, where creatures swam like ribbons of light. The hours passed, and though he tried to keep his guard, Ethan found himself smiling at her tales. He hadn't smiled in a long time. For once, the storm inside him quieted. When his eyes grew heavy, he leaned back against the stone arch, letting the sound of her voice and the warmth of the fire carry him into sleep. Before he drifted off, he heard her whisper something he barely understood. Even storms can rest when the night is shared. For the first time since his ship had broken down, Ethan did not feel lost. He felt found. When Ethan woke, the fire was nothing but faint embers glowing like red eyes in the sand. For a moment he forgot where he was. The desert's cold pressed hard against his skin, and the sky above him was painted with strange constellations. Then he saw her, Leora, sitting cross-legged a few feet away, her violet eyes watching the horizon as if waiting for the sun. She noticed him stir and gave a small smile. "You slept," she said softly. Ethan rubbed his face. First time, in days. He almost admitted it was also the first time he had slept without nightmares, but the words stuck in his throat. She rose gracefully, dusting the sand from her long cloak. "The suns will rise soon. I must fetch water before the heat grows." She handed him a small clay jug. "Drink. You will need your strength." The water was cool, fresher than anything he had carried in his canteen. He looked at her curiously. "Where do you find this? There's nothing but sand out here." "Not all things hide from the eye," she answered. "Some are revealed only to those who know where to look." She led him beyond the stone arches. The desert stretched endlessly, but Leora's steps were confident. After some distance, she knelt beside a cluster of rocks. From beneath, she drew a tube made of carved bone, pressed it into the ground, and with practiced ease pulled up water that shimmered faintly in the dim light. "Hidden streams," she explained when she saw his surprise. "The desert teaches us to listen, not to look." Ethan knelt beside her, staring at the flowing water. "If I had wandered here alone, I'd be bones in the sand by now." "You were not meant to be alone," she said calmly, her words unsettled. Him, not meant to be alone. He wondered what she truly saw in him. As they walked back, Ethan felt the weight of unspoken thoughts pressing against him. He wanted to tell her why he had been traveling this part of space, why he had come so far from Earth, but fear chained his tongue. To admit the truth meant admitting he had carried intentions that others might not forgive. Leora, however, seemed in no rush. She asked him about small things instead. "On your world," she began, "what does the night feel like?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Cold, sometimes, but beautiful. The sky fills with stars, millions of them, and sometimes rain, the sound of water falling in the dark. It's comforting." "Rain," she repeated, her tone full of wonder. "I have never seen the sky give water. Here the sky only gives heat." Her curiosity disarmed him. Instead of treating him like an intruder, she treated him like a window into something she longed to understand. He found himself smiling again, though the heaviness in his chest never fully left. By midday, the desert turned brutal. The twin suns blazed overhead, the sand burning hot enough to blister. They sheltered inside the ruins, where the stone walls offered shade. Ethan studied the carvings etched into the stone. The symbols were old spirals and lines cut deep into the rock. "What is this place?" and he asked. "An outpost of my people," Leora replied. "Long abandoned. They left when the desert grew harsher, but I returned to keep it alive." "Alone?" She nodded. "Yes, my people live far to the north in cities where rivers flow. But I prefer the silence here." Ethan watched her carefully. "Silence can be heavy." "It can," she admitted. "But silence also listens. It hears truths we hide from ourselves." She looked directly at him. "You carry truths you have not spoken." The words struck him. For a moment he looked away, staring at the cracks in the wall. His throat tightened. He wanted to tell her about the mission that had brought him here, about the warnings he carried for any world unprepared for outsiders who hungered for resources. But fear of judgment kept him quiet. Instead, he said, "Maybe I'm not ready to share them." Her gaze softened. "That is your choice. Trust is not demanded, it is given when the heart allows." That evening, as the suns dipped low, the desert cooled. Leora lit another fire, and the two of them sat close once more. This time she told stories of her people, how they once believed the stars were living spirits, how they sang songs to guide travelers across the endless dunes. Her voice carried a rhythm, gentle and melodic, weaving pictures in the air. Ethan listened, captivated. Each word painted her world in colors he had never seen. For a brief moment, he forgot the shadows of his own past. When she paused, he asked, "And you? Do you believe the stars are spirits?" She thought carefully before answering. "I believe they are reminders. Each one burns alone, yet together they make a sky full of light. Perhaps that is their lesson, that we are not meant to walk only by ourselves." The firelight flickered against her silver hair. Ethan studied her, realizing how different she was from anyone he had met. She spoke of trust and companionship, not as weaknesses, but as strengths. He felt the wall around his heart shift again, just slightly. Later, as the desert wind whispered through the ruins, Leora turned to him with calm certainty. "Ethan," she said, "tonight stay near the fire again. Not because you are weak, but because you should not face the dark alone. In my people's ways, to share the night is to share a piece of the spirit, and I think your spirit has been lonely too long." The words broke something inside him. He looked away quickly, afraid she might see the storm in his eyes. He had not expected anyone to speak so directly to the emptiness he carried. He drew a slow breath. Maybe you're right." Her smile was soft, unforced. She added no pressure, no demand. Just the quiet acceptance that somehow made him feel lighter. That night, Ethan lay near the fire once more, but this time he did not guard himself so tightly. He spoke more freely, telling her about small things from Earth, music, rivers, the way children laughed while chasing each other in the rain. Leora listened with an attentiveness that made even his simplest memories feel important. In return, she told him about the glowing seas, about creatures that lit the water with colors that danced like lanterns. She described how her people held festivals along the shore, releasing floating shells that carried fire across the waves. For hours they traded pieces of themselves, not secrets, not yet, but fragments of the worlds that had shaped them. And as the night deepened, Ethan realized something. The weight inside him had not vanished, but for the first time he no longer carried it alone. The next morning began with silence. The desert winds had died, and the twin suns rose slowly, spreading long shadows across the stone ruins. Ethan sat near the fire pit, sharpening a broken piece of metal he had found among his ship parts. It was useless as a weapon, but working on it kept his hands busy and his thoughts quiet. Leora returned from gathering herbs, her silver hair glowing faintly in the morning light. She carried a pouch filled with dried roots and leaves. "You work as if you expect danger," she said, noticing the way he tightened his grip on the sharpened metal. Ethan gave a small shrug. "Habit. Humans prepare for storms even when the sky is clear." Her eyes softened, but before she could respond, a sound cut through the stillness. Voices. They were sharp, echoing from beyond the ruins. Ethan tensed instantly. Leora froze, her violet eyes narrowing. "Stay here," she whispered, but Ethan stood too, instinct already telling him not to hide. The voices grew louder, and soon 3 figures appeared at the edge of the ruins. They were like Leora, tall with pale skin and glowing markings, though their expressions carried suspicion instead of warmth. Each wore a cloak marked with silver bands, symbols of authority among her people. "Leora," one of them said firmly, stepping forward. His markings pulsed brighter as he spoke. "You were sent to watch the outpost, not to harbor outsiders." His eyes flicked to Ethan, hard and unwelcoming. "Especially not a human." Ethan straightened, ready to defend himself if needed, but Leora raised a hand. "He is not an enemy," she said calmly. "He was lost. I gave him shelter." The leader frowned. "Humans bring storms. You know the stories. They burn worlds for their own gain." Ethan's jaw tightened, the words cutting deep. He wanted to argue, but he also knew those stories held truth. Humans had left scars across galaxies. He was proof of that. Leora stepped between them, her cloak brushing the sand. "I have seen his spirit. He carries storms, yes, but not for harm. He carries them because he has suffered." The other figures muttered among themselves. One, a woman with sharp features, hissed, "How can you trust him? His kind cannot hide their hunger. He will take what he wants and leave ashes." Ethan finally spoke, his voice steady. "I'm not here to take anything. My ship broke down. I have nothing left but the will to survive." He met their eyes, refusing to back down. "If you want me gone, I'll go. But I won't lie about who I am." The leader studied him closely, then turned back to Leora. "This is not our way. If you bring a storm into the desert, it will not only destroy you, it will destroy us all." Leora's voice grew firm, stronger than Ethan had ever heard. "Then let it destroy me first, if he is truly what you fear. But until then, I choose to trust him." The 3 figures exchanged glances. Finally, the leader said coldly, "You risk more than your own life, Leora. The council will hear of this." With that, they turned and left, their cloaks trailing dust behind them. The ruins fell silent again. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized. He was holding. "They hate me," he muttered. "They fear you," Leora corrected softly. She looked troubled, her violet eyes clouded. "My people know little of humans except the shadows you leave. To them, you are danger given form." Ethan sat heavily on a stone, the weight of guilt pressing harder than before. He thought of the colonies he had seen destroyed by human greed, of the endless hunger for resources that drove his kind across the stars. The accusations of her people weren't lies. They were history. He ran a hand through his hair. "They're not wrong. Humans. We have taken too much from too many. I've seen it myself. Maybe I'm not worth your trust either." But Leora stepped closer, her expression unwavering. "Worth is not written by the mistakes of your kind. It is written by the choices you make now. And I see a man who carries storms but does not let them rule him." Her words struck deep. Ethan wanted to believe them, but the storm inside him still raged. That night, the desert felt colder. The fire burned low, and Ethan sat staring into it, replaying the encounter in his mind. Leora joined him, sitting close enough for the warmth to reach them both. "They will tell the council," she said quietly. "What does that mean for you?" Ethan asked. "It means I will be judged for trusting you, perhaps punished." He turned sharply to her. "Then send me away. I don't want you paying the price for helping me." She shook her head slowly. "If I let fear decide, then I betray, not only you but myself. I chose to believe in you, Ethan. That choice is mine to bear." For a long moment he said nothing. Her loyalty stunned him, but it also tore at the wall he had built around his heart. She deserved the truth, even if it broke whatever bond they had. He took a deep breath. Leora, there's something I haven't told you. Her eyes turned to him, calm but curious. Then tell me now. He hesitated, fighting the storm of shame inside. Finally, the words came. I wasn't just wandering space when my ship crashed. I was running from the mistakes of my people and from my own. She listened in silence, her gaze steady. Ethan continued, voice rough. I worked for those who strip worlds of what they want. Metals, water, even life. I thought it was just survival, until I saw the destruction we left behind. I couldn't be part of it anymore. So I left. But no matter where I go, I carry the stain of what I did. The confession hung heavy in the air. Ethan expected anger, maybe even disgust. But Leora didn't turn away. She reached out, placing her hand lightly over his. Her skin was cool, her touch steady. You carry storms, yes? She said softly. But storms can also bring rain. They can bring life if they are guided. Ethan swallowed hard, emotions choking him. You really think someone like me can change? Her violet eyes shone in the firelight. I do. Otherwise, I would not have asked you to share the night with me. The desert was quiet, but Ethan's mind was not. Every word he had spoken to Leora still echoed in his head. He had confessed part of his past, but not all. There were still truths locked away, heavy truths that could change everything between them. Leora sat across the fire, her eyes fixed on the flames. Her silver hair shimmered in the glow, and her calm expression only deepened the storm within Ethan. She had listened to him without judgment, but how long could that last once she knew the full truth? He drew in a deep breath. There's more, he said suddenly, his voice breaking the silence. Leora looked up, her violet eyes soft but unflinching. Then speak it. Ethan hesitated. The words tasted bitter in his mouth. I wasn't only running from my people's destruction. I was carrying knowledge, maps, data, secrets. If the wrong hands get them, your world will be next. Her eyes narrowed slightly, though not in anger. And you carry these with you now? Ethan nodded. My ship still has the records. Even broken, its memory banks hold everything. That's why I couldn't let anyone close. If scavengers, pirates, or even desperate humans discover it, your deserts will not remain untouched. The fire crackled between them. Leora leaned back slightly, studying him. So your dirty intentions, she repeated his earlier words gently, were not to harm me, but to hide what you feared could destroy us. Yes. His voice dropped low. But hiding it means hiding myself. It means living like a shadow, and I didn't want to bring that shadow to you. For a long while, she said nothing. The desert wind carried whispers across the ruins, and Ethan's heart pounded. Then Leora finally spoke, her voice calm but steady. Ethan, truth is not a shadow. It is a flame. It burns, yes, but it also gives light. You have kept your fire hidden too long. Her words both comforted and scared him. If your people find out, they'll think I came here to use you. They'll think I'm a threat. They already do, Leora said simply. But I will decide for myself what you are. The following day, the peace of the ruins shattered. A group of Leora's people arrived, more than before. This time, 6 figures approached, their cloaks flowing like banners of authority. At their center was the same leader from before, his markings glowing brighter in the sunlight. Leora, he called, his voice echoing. The council demands your return, and the human must come with us. Ethan tensed, ready to defend himself. But Leora stood tall, stepping in front of him. He has done no harm. The leader's eyes narrowed. Not yet, but his kind always does. We cannot wait until the storm falls upon us. Ethan clenched his fists. The truth he had revealed to Leora pressed against him, begging to be spoken aloud. If he stayed silent, they would condemn him. If he spoke, They might see him as even more dangerous. He stepped forward, his voice firm. They're right to fear. I do carry something dangerous. My ship holds knowledge of worlds like yours, resources, maps, weaknesses. If others find it, they will come. I couldn't let that happen, so I left it behind. I stayed here to keep it hidden. Gasps rippled through the group. One of them hissed, "So it is true, he carries the storm." The leader's expression hardened. "And you admit it yourself. What more proof do we need? This human is a threat." Before they could advance, Leora raised her hand. "He is not your enemy. He is warning us. Without him, we would never know the danger that may come." "Without him," the leader snapped, "the danger would not even be near us." Ethan's chest tightened. He knew this would happen. Every truth he spoke seemed to push him further into the role of the villain. But Leora didn't falter. "If you cast him away," she said firmly, "you cast away the chance to prepare. Do not blind yourselves because of fear." The others murmured among themselves. The leader looked ready to argue, but finally he said, coldly, "The council will decide. Bring them both." They were escorted across the desert, walking under the burning suns until the stone towers of a city rose from the horizon. Ethan had never seen anything like it. Structures carved from pale stone shimmered with markings that glowed faintly in the heat. Rivers ran through the city, cutting bright paths of life through the desert sands. As they entered, whispers followed them. Children peered from doorways, adults stared with suspicion. Ethan felt the weight of every eye pressing on him. Inside a grand hall, the council awaited. 5 figures seated in a circle, their cloaks adorned with intricate silver symbols. The leader who had brought them bowed and stepped aside. "This is the human," one counselor said, their voice echoing across the chamber. "The one who carries storms." Ethan stood in the center, Leora at his side. He felt small beneath their gaze, but he forced himself to meet it. "I won't lie," he began. "Yes, I was part of those who destroyed. I worked for them, helped them take from others. I thought it was survival, but I saw the cost. I saw what it did to families, to whole worlds. That's why I left." The counselors whispered among themselves. One frowned deeply. "And now you bring those same dangers here?" "No," Ethan said quickly. "That's why I'm here. My ship is broken, but its memory still holds data. I stayed to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. I stayed because I couldn't let your world suffer like the others." The chamber grew quiet. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Leora stepped forward. Her voice rang strong. "I have seen his heart. He carries storms, yes. But storms do not always destroy. Sometimes they bring rain. Sometimes they bring life. I believe he is here to protect, not to harm." The council studied her. "You would risk your people for this?" one asked. "I would risk myself," Leora said firmly. "And if you cannot trust him, then trust me." The council did not give their judgment immediately. They dismissed them, leaving Ethan and Leora in a small chamber under guard. Ethan sat heavily against the wall. "I've made it worse for you," he said bitterly. But Leora shook her head. "You gave them truth. Truth is never worse, even if it cuts. Lies are what destroy us." He looked at her, exhaustion in his eyes. "And if they decide I'm too dangerous?" She reached for his hand, gripping it tightly. "Then I will still choose to stand with you." For a moment, Ethan could only stare at her. The weight in his chest loosened slightly. Whatever storm lay ahead, he knew he would not face it alone. That night, as they waited, Ethan lay awake, staring at the stone ceiling. He thought of Earth, of the mistakes he had left behind, and of the fragile bond he had found here. He did not know what the council would decide, but he knew one thing with certainty. Leora's trust had given him something he had long believed lost: hope. And for the first time in years, he dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could be more than the storm he carried. The night inside the chamber was long. Ethan sat on the stone floor, his back against the wall, staring at the dim glow of the lantern fixed above the door. His body was tired, but his mind refused to rest. Every sound outside made his chest tighten. He knew the council was debating his fate, and each passing hour felt heavier than the last. Leora sat close to him, her silver hair cascading over her shoulders like strands of light. She hadn't spoken much since they were brought here, but her presence alone steadied him. From time to time, her violet eyes would meet his, and she would give him a small, reassuring smile, as if to say, "You are not alone." Finally, the heavy door creaked open. 2 guards entered and motioned for them to rise. "The council will see you," one of them said. Ethan felt his stomach knot. He stood slowly, glancing at Leora. She touched his arm briefly. "Walk with courage," she whispered. They were led back into the grand hall. The 5 counselors sat in their circle, their glowing markings brighter than before. The leader who had brought Ethan here stood nearby, his arms crossed, his expression hard as stone. The eldest counselor spoke first, her voice deep and commanding. "Human, we have heard your words, we have heard Leora's defense, but truth alone does not decide fate. Actions do." Ethan drew in a slow breath. "Then tell me what I must do." Another counselor leaned forward. "Your ship. Its memory. Banks contain knowledge that could endanger not only our people but many others. We cannot allow such a thing to remain unguarded." "I know," Ethan said quietly. "That's why I stayed. I didn't want it to be found." "Then prove it," the counselor replied. "You will lead us to your ship. You will destroy the knowledge yourself before our eyes. Only then will we know if your heart speaks truth." The hall fell silent. Ethan's chest tightened. Destroying the data meant cutting ties with the past, erasing everything he had carried. For years, the storm inside him had been fed by those very records, by the guilt of what he once helped create. Perhaps this was his only chance to end it. He looked at Leora. She gave a single nod. "Do what your heart already knows," she whispered. The journey back to the wrecked ship took most of the day. They crossed the desert under guard, the heat pressing down like a hammer. Ethan walked at the front, Leora beside him, the counselors following close behind. When they reached the ridge where his ship lay half buried in sand, Ethan stopped. The vessel looked even more broken than he remembered, its hull scorched, its wings twisted like broken arms. But inside, the memory banks still pulsed with faint light, holding secrets dangerous enough to doom worlds. He stepped inside carefully, the air stale with dust. The counselors followed, their eyes sharp, waiting for him to act. Ethan approached the core console, his hands trembling. For a moment, he hesitated. Memories rushed through him. Missions, orders, voices of men who once called him ally. He remembered the resources stripped from helpless planets, the cries of those left with nothing. His heart pounded, torn between guilt and fear. Then he heard Leora's voice, calm and steady. "Ethan, you are not your past, you are the choice you make now." Her words cut through the storm. Ethan exhaled slowly, then placed his hand on the console. With one press, the screens flickered to life, showing rows of maps and coded files. He stared at them for a long moment, then he entered the command. The system gave a low hum, then a rising whine. One by one, the files began to dissolve into static. Maps faded, data vanished, everything turning into nothing but light and dust. Ethan felt his chest lighten with each deletion, as if chains were falling away. When the final file vanished, the console went dark. Silence filled the ship. "It's done," Ethan said, his voice rough but firm. "There's nothing left." The counselors exchanged looks. The leader who had doubted him the most frowned, but gave a slow nod. "You have destroyed what could have doomed us. Perhaps your storms are not what we feared." The eldest counselor rose. "You have proven your words with action. The council will not condemn you. But know this, human. You walk a path of great weight. Trust is fragile. Break it and you will not be forgiven again." Ethan bowed his head. "I understand." The guards lowered their weapons, and the tension that had hung heavy in the air finally lifted. That evening, Back at the ruins where Ethan and Leora had first shared the fire, the desert was quiet again. The stars spread wide above them, filling the sky with silver light. Ethan sat near the flames, staring at the sparks as they rose into the night. Leora sat beside him, her cloak wrapped around her shoulders. For a long while, neither spoke. The silence was not heavy now, it was peaceful. Finally, Ethan broke it. I thought I'd feel empty, letting go of all that data, but I don't. I feel free. Leora smiled softly. Storms cannot last forever. They must break or they destroy everything. You let yours break. Ethan turned to her, his eyes reflecting the firelight. I couldn't have done it without you. If you hadn't believed in me, I might have clung to the past until it consumed me. You gave me your truth, she said gently, and I gave you mine. That is the way trust is built. He studied her for a moment, the warmth in her eyes, the calm strength in her voice. Then he looked back at the fire. I don't know what comes next. I have no ship, no path. Just this desert and your people, most of whom don't want me, here. Leora reached out, resting her hand lightly on his. Then walk the path beside me. It will not be easy, but no path worth walking ever is. Her words sank deep into him, steady and sure. For the first time in years, Ethan allowed himself to imagine a future, not one written by fear and guilt, but by choice.